C26 is gone fishing.
Hello, gone fishing. It's August 23rd, 2021. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are episode 506.
506, man.
506, man. It's hot today. I don't know if it is hot. We had like rain on and off all weekend and all week, basically. I think we got a little bit of the aftermath and effects from some of the tropical storms and hurricanes hitting the Florida area and definitely the east, northeast right now. So we got a lot of rain this weekend. Much needed rain, but it is hot today, and it's supposed to be hot the rest of the week. That doesn't mean it's going to be hot for Ironman Chattanooga. I'm still predicting cool, crisp temps.
God, I hope so. Because
This weekend was brutal. That was like one of the main things I read this weekend, like basically all over the country. The most used word in Training Peaks comments post ride and run and athlete feedback was soupy. Was the word soupy, meaning the air felt soupy. It felt dense. It felt like you could actually taste it and eat it with a spoon. It was that thick. Dew points insanely high, and obviously you're going to get that. And the humidity is super high, and obviously you're going to get that with the kind of moisture in the air that's created by the hurricane and tropical storms that we have going on. That's my little weatherman action.
I think it's a good time to put in there because we've talked about it before, and I just said it to an athlete this morning, but the humidity, dew point, all these temperatures, what we're dealing with right now can impact your pace up to 1.5 minutes per mile or more sometimes. So let's not freak out yet.
Oh, but everybody's got to freak out. It is the final. Listen, we're going into our people's final descent
I'm freaking out.
to racing, which was like which is what the Zoom call for our athletes that we work with on Wednesday. I took a piece out of your feedback that you gave on our text thread, and I could tell maybe it was kind of going through your mind was how to approach, the taper physically and mentally. And the best way I used to describe it as a coach was that I feel like as a coach, when you have like a bunch of athletes, like we have team races, like Ironman Chattanooga, you got Wisconsin, a bunch of races condensed, and a lot of people doing long distance races. I feel like the mother of the bride / a wedding planner this time of year with too many brides to handle because it's mentally and emotionally exhausting. And I kind of like alluded to this in a weekly email, not this week, but last week. And I said, this is why this time of year is so great for me to have like my flex schedule of like off season, not worried about my own training, worried about athletes, not so much athletes training, but athletes like mental and emotional well-being, because it is at a very touchy tip of the iceberg, kind of like hanging off a cliff area. Mental breakdowns, emotional breakdowns, the Ironman freak out, it is upon us. $15 copay. I usually waive that for current athletes, but I will charge if you're not an active athlete. But we don't charge you either for this podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, we cover it all. We cover swim, bike, run, specific training. We do race recaps, race previews. We'll have some of those coming up again as we have some of our bigger races about to kick off here at the beginning of September all the way through November. We'll have on the occasional guests. Sometimes we'll even hop into our Facebook group. You can search Crushing Iron Group to be part of that awesome conversation, awesome community. And then obviously Mike is coaches and athletes ourselves and best friends. We'll oftentimes kind of use what we're going through. And then, like I just kind of mentioned, peruse the Training Peaks feedback and comments and banter that we have with the collective team that we have assembled from around the world, basically, and use that vibe to generate the topic of the day and the conversation. But for the most part, that's what we do. Just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. We do have one agenda. And that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Thank you.
I'm positive today.
You are positive, but I heard you might be having a rant.
I
coming
have.
Up, but can we hold that? Or
yeah,
do you want to go out of the gate?
No. I don't want to go. And I wouldn't consider it a rant.
Okay.
I would consider it kind of
got
like
me excited there for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't rant like you rant. We have different levels of rant.
What do you mean?
It's I have swimming level, brick level rants, and then I have like we need to sit down and have a talk, kind of heavier discussions. I guess that's probably a better not a rant. I'm not going to go off in a rant. Yeah, again, I guess I'm feeling very purposeful and focused this morning.
Okay, that's
good.
But
go ahead. You said you rarely, if ever, have a topic. And so today I was like, hey, can I go on a rant? And you're like, no, dude, I've got 5 things outlined specifically on this note card that we need to do.
I've had a lot of topics.
Yeah, you do. You have a lot of topics.
But I like to trust in the flow. I think that usually.
But you had a training lesson this weekend.
I did. I had an easy run Friday, and then you caught me on the treadmill, and I actually made it a harder run than I should have. Friday night, just hanging out on the treadmill.
Can I tell everybody like how that happened? It's going to go down in one of your, and I've used this before, like way back in the day when Mike, not way back in the day, but a couple of years ago, Mike took the podium at Rev 3 in Knoxville, and they gifted him. This is going to go up with one of his comments. He was gifted, a box of power bars, and on the podium. I think it was wrapped. I think there was a couple gold wrap bars in there, but we were out on a ride on Natchez Trace, I think the following year. So he had stocked these and let them kind of get really nice and hard and stale. And we're out on a ride, and we pull up on the overlook on the Trace. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and Corey and I, right? And just the 3 of us. And we're out there getting some stuff. And we started talking about the inflation prices of power bars in the grocery store.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And because at the local Kroger there in East Nashville, you could get like 10 for $10 for $10. It was like one for $1. And you go, yeah. He's chomping down, takes his first bite, and he's like mid chew, and he goes, yeah. I didn't have to pay for these. I got these when I was on the podium last year. Kind of jabbing. So he and I are on a text thread with this other guy, and we're kind of getting some info over. It's on a Friday night, so we're not. Neither one of us supposed to be working, but some things are kind of pressing. So I sent this over, and I was like, Mike, get this whatever. He goes, and he does the old text back. Friday night, he's like, and you could hear it in his voice, and he's like, yeah, I'll get back to you guys later. I'm on the tread. kind of like shoving it in, like you guys are, like doing whatever, Friday night, probably not doing jack and eating like garbage, but I'm on the tread, man. I'll get back to you. I'm about to hit up the gym and do some squats.
Yeah.
And I felt soft when I read that. I felt having not worked out at all last week. I felt soft, but I was proud of you. I was like, man, he's in the zone.
Yeah, but that was the first situation of 3 over the weekend when I was almost a prisoner of the moment. Well, I was that night because I was at like a 45-minute easy run. I'm like, I feel pretty good. I'm going to throw in Montagetti at him right now and kind of do some interval running and just see what I got. And I felt really good after that. And then the next day, when my athletes asked if I wanted to go ride out at the battlefield here, and he said he'd be there at 7, I said, I might be there a little later. And I ended up getting out there about 9:30, and right when I got there, it just started raining, and I rode most of my ride in the rain, which I love. Like, I think it's a great opportunity, really. I mean, because if you get in a race and you haven't rode in the rain, then you start freaking out or whatever. But the thing of it was, with the dew point and the humidity, it was hot.
It was nasty.
But when it started raining, you know how you feel.
Yeah, you felt refreshed.
Feels good.
Yeah.
It's good. So I started laying it down a little bit, and towards the end of the run, I think the rain stopped, the clouds kind of left a little bit, and I started getting a little hot under the collar out there at the end. But I had a nice ride, and I think I probably pushed it too hard because of the seasonal EPO of the pouring rain.
Mm-hmm.
And but I felt okay after that. And then yesterday I woke up a little stiff, and I decided to let the day come to me. I'm going to go get a little run in, and sure enough.
What time of day did you pick to choose this run?
Well, it turned out to be about 4.
Oh, dude.
But
why?
I know. But I had to get it in. And honestly, the reason I did is because it was raining again.
It was
so
raining.
It started
pouring.
I drove. I'm like, I'm going to go run the loop right now. I'm going to do a little chill running in the rain. I got down there. My iPod was not charged. So I'm like, oh, God. And then I'm like,
It used to be so non-iPod.
I know.
Listening to
but
music.
I'm thinking, okay, I need this today. And then I got there and it was dead. Pouring rain. Everybody's standing under the bridge and, just waiting. And I'm like, who does this? And I run right into it. Nobody's doing this right now. I'm kind of giving the Goggins move, right?
Mm-hmm. How long did that last?
About 1.5 miles. The rain stopped and the sun came out like instantly.
I remember this because Hayden had a friend over and it poured. And they're playing in the rain, and then all of a sudden around 4:30, 4:40, the sun came out, and it felt like thick as mud outside. It was so hot and uncomfortable.
And so I'm out there, and I felt pretty good, the first few miles, and then that sun just started nailing me, and I'm doing the old, man, this like looking at, I'm like, what is, I go, and I'm struggling a little bit about mile 5, and then at mile 6, I felt good. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And then about mile 7, I'm going, I gotta quit. I don't know. This is not a good idea. And then I'm like, nope, you got to do the whole loop. I'm kind of going back and forth. And then it's sort of like, okay, I'm feeling okay. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to quit triathlon. This sucks, or whatever. I'm in and out of this boat. Mm-hmm. And finally, thank God, I just, I had an hour and a half run scheduled for myself. And I was going to do the loop, and I got to the bridge there after Battery Lane, and I was like, you know what? I'm running back to the car, and I ran down the hill, and thank God I did that because I feel okay today. But last night, I was shelled, and I was a little bit of a prisoner of the moment, and I could have been a lot worse. So I just, I think I'm grateful that I didn't try to prove something to myself last night, because why? I mean, I'm thinking you could do this, but why are you going to do it right now?
Listen, I read at least 8 to 10 of those basically like exact feedbacks from this weekend. I read more implosions this weekend on long rides and runs than I think I have in the last month and a half.
Really?
Because of the time of day, a lot of athletes were doing things, and just how like high the humidity and how high the dew point was. And you see this a lot too with that. Like I read this specifically for an athlete who, like, that's why I'm not super anti concentrated bottles, but most of the time you just need when the humidity and the dew point. And I'm also not about like wasting real estate in your stomach when you can just take in just water. You want to put something in there, but that's why you have to have like a happy medium of water, but also like appropriately mixed carbohydrate drinks, whether it's Infinite, Tailwind, EFS Pro, Science Sport, whatever it is. That's why you have to have the option of water. You can't just have like one condensed bottle, just one bottle of, 300, 400 calories that you're taking in, because you're with the sweat rate that you're going to have when especially even if you're like an average sweater, when the dew point is that high, it means that you are going to be losing sweat and water at such a rapid rate. You need more fluids than you normally do. But what are you doing if you're taking in fluids? You're taking like excess calories your body can't digest and absorb quickly, so you have stomach issues. So I saw a lot of that. And then I just saw overall, like you put together, and we always say, fatigue masks fitness. But then when you put another layer on that, which is dew point, and you put another layer on that, which is humidity, and then another layer on that, which is, the heat. And it's more than just masks fitness. It is just, hey, let's aim for the low end of what's going on and just kind of practice, maybe perfect effort execution, not so much like hitting a specific heart rate or specific watt range on everything. And then also understanding that like this is the time of year where it's going to be, in my opinion, the hottest for most places where you live. This is the hottest time of year. The middle to end of August, maybe even first week of September is the absolute hottest it's going to be. And then things start to kind of taper off. This is also the meat of like people's biggest training blocks, right? They're putting in massive fatigue. It also, like, I'll be honest with you, the last 2 to 3 weeks reading through, and I think this is also why, like, a lot of people, when they talk about this podcast, they always kind of say, it feels like you're talking to me, or this is exactly what I need to hear. It's because, you and I and our other coaches work with such a wide range of athletes and so many athletes all over the world that usually like the general consensus of the most common denominator is the most common denominator for everyone in general, right? And I even had this like discussion with another texter that I'm on, this guy's a doctor, and he mentioned like, he was like, how are you guys doing? I'm seeing a lot of depression and anxiety people coming in the last 2 weeks of the office. And I was like, yep, dude, same. That's like a lot of what I read in Training Peaks is people who are anxious, people who are just getting down, life stress. Dude, life is a lot. And especially like, I think people underestimate the busyness of the school year, especially if you have kids and you may or may not need to rethink the timing of your biggest races when you have all these, schedules and structures and kids going back to school and all the added stress of that. It's a lot to handle, and life is just generally hard as it is no matter what. And that's honestly the vibe that I've been getting the last 2 or 3 weeks is that people feel overwhelmed. And then you add in training, that you try to stay so insanely focused on and dialed in. And this is it is the hardest time of year to complete things as prescribed, as is, up to your assumption or expectation or goal or whatever it is you have for each workout. That's why it's the best time of year to calm the fuck down and relax. And like kind of reset yourself from a expectation standpoint and understand, I don't want to say understand your place in this world, but understand like understand triathlon's place in your world, and understand that stress is going to impact you in a huge way. And I think I even had an athlete kind of use this analogy this morning, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but he was like, man, my energy, my energy and my stress battery they're getting zapped before I even get to my training. And people just continuously and will always, I think, underestimate the impact of life stress, whether it's good stress. And I have like a lot of athletes moving right now. They're good moves, but still, dude, I know moving sucks. Like even if it's like you're moving into like your dream house or you're moving to a great city, you got a new job, it is stressful. It is just a lot to do. And you take all of that and then you're expecting your body and your mind. And then with that busyness also becomes people who are like insanely busy and just fail to fuel themselves appropriately. Of course, they're so busy, they forget to hydrate, they forget to eat right, drink right, stay on things. And oh, you know what? I'm going to go hop out and run today at 5 p.m., when they realize they probably haven't drank like a half cup of water all day long, and they wonder why things went so poorly. And then the other side of that is you're never going to be shelled for just today. Like if especially for like long rides, if you like bonk at like the 3 hour mark and you make it the last 2 hours and you do something you shouldn't, which is, finish, you did something was smart, which was just call it a day. It's okay to get the shovel out and like maybe test to see how easy digging the hole is, but it's not okay to dig it. But when you dig a hole, you're not going to feel better the next day. And you're probably not going to feel better the next day. It's going to take you usually 48 to 72 hours to recover from overextending yourself and being, I don't want to say being irresponsible, but being a prisoner in the moment the other way, which is I've got to get this done. If I don't do this, that's going to wreck, all of my training, that I'm going to do. If this one ride, this in my short list. No, it's about the ability to wake up tomorrow and do better. It's not about doing better as in crushing your work. It's about just handling life better. And to handle life better, and again, that goes back to another overarching theme that I'm reading a lot right now with so many people is that, I've never been, I don't know why I'm unmotivated, or I don't know, I don't have the energy to go work out. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm like, I do. Go back and read your Training Peaks comments the last 3 weeks. This is all came to a head because you have to have energy and you have to feel good to be committed and to want to work out. It's not the other way around. You at least have to have some energy to go work out and be positive and to get things done. And sometimes you just need a total reset. You have to have sometimes you just need a longer period of time to just because I think once you get farther away from, sometimes you need more of a day. Had an athlete out in California who did Coeur d'Alene, DNF'd on a super hot day and was kind of having trouble getting her mojo back and was fighting through some sickness. And she's doing Ironman California now, and she said, hey, I've got this, wedding I've got to go to, it's my friends, whatever, I can't not go, but it's in the thick of training, she's like, I feel bad. And I was like, you know what this sounds like? It sounds like a great time to just take the week and do whatever the hell you want to do. So you take an athlete who's panicking, right, about not being prepared and kind of getting over having a really bad day at Coeur d'Alene and on insanely tough course and really hot conditions, who's kind of worried about what Ironman California is going to be like, who I know has awesome fitness and perfect capability of honestly going out tomorrow and doing Ironman, who's worried about missing a weekend. And so instead of saying, hey, let's, take your bike shoes down to this, wedding and, get up early and do this, we can't miss this weekend. It's crucial. So instead of taking the mid-range level and all right, we'll just, we're smashed the first 4 days of the week and then just do what you can. I was like, no. We basically double the amount of time off. I was like, take the week. Take the entire week off. Do whatever you feel like. Get not just your body healthy, because she was, I think, fighting a cold and couldn't get it, kept wanting to get up. I was like, dude, that's one of the guests we've had him before, Starkey. He was like, You're like, what do you do when you get sick? He was like, I shut it all down completely. And I sleep as much as I can and rest as much as I can for like 24 to 48 hours until it's gone. And I don't just let it linger. I get it done. And I was like, just take the week. And she commented on Sunday, she was like, I feel so refreshed. I feel so ready. Because an athlete that is happy and positive and charged is a fast athlete, and an athlete that's going to be able to complete training in a positive way. An athlete who is run down, pessimistic, negative, just like kind of slogging through every workout, you're not going to gain much except for digging yourself a bigger hole.
I know. Can you imagine just like leading up to a race for 3 weeks feeling like that? Why don't you want to just, take some days? Because again, it's sort of like we see it all the time when people rest, for a few days or a week or whatever. They come out and have an unbelievable ride, right? Or something like that. And, that at some point you got to make that decision, I think, whether you're just going to keep trying to stay in the game and build fitness the last 3 or 4 weeks before you race, or just recover a little bit and start feeling better and have more energy, because you don't dig out when you're digging in. So it's like, you got to kind of think about that. And I want to go back to the, the life stress and things like that. And there's so much going on, it seems like these days. When you look at social media or you get online, it's like every single second there's a prompt or a suggestion or a thought that, do this and your life will be better, or do this and your life will be better. Or, like over the years you accumulate 1,000 friends on Facebook or something, and maybe like 10 of them or max. 20 of them, max. And next thing you know, somebody from way back in the day that you met one night at a bar is talking about like somebody who in their family who got sick, or prayers for them. And it's like, why? I mean, it's just like, at what end can we care about like everybody in the world individually? And
everything
in the world individually. And it's like, it's just too much, man. That's what I was talking about years ago when I've always really been interested in this idea of simplifying things around my house and clearing out stuff. And I struggle with it big time. But, even if you have like a book sitting over there that you wanted to read 3 years ago, and it's like how to, relieve stress. Obstacles away. It's just sitting there. And every time I see that, I feel guilty, or it's like it creates some kind of emotion in me. It's like, man, or why didn't I finish reading that book on how to, write postcards for a living or something like that? It's like, man, you just, or not postcards. What are those things called? Greeting cards.
Yeah, greeting
cards. And
I
was like, I was going to do that one time. I have some great ideas for greeting cards. I could be the next Hallmark. And I just wouldn't throw it away for so long. But there's all these books and all these things about how to get better at this, how to, do Tai Chi, and how to like whatever. You got these crap sitting around all the time, and we keep thinking about it. It's like, man, you can only do so much. And I really do think that social media sort of addiction, or whatever you want to call it, it just really like just sits there with this low level anxiety at all times and creates this thing. And I talked about it before when I lost my phone I didn't have one for like 3 or 4 days. I had so much more energy just generally. I think we underestimate the energy that stuff takes out of us, like on a daily.
Thinking drains you, like in a worrying drains you. Like we've talked about before, like, you sit in a exhausting.
I should be doing these things.
Right.
I should be.
Right. Like I had this exact, so, like I got off, I was noticing like some, like like I said in the weekly email this morning to our team, is like, your time is the most valuable asset that you have. And who and the what you choose to give it to is incredibly important. And you have to be selfish with who you give it to and how you give it to people. I was having this, like a couple like multiple things I want to go into here. And I kind of had this, I got off Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I got off last week. So I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter. I just kind of noticed that my energy was going places that was wasteful. Like I have limited energy every day. Like, in order to grow your business and your podcast and your coaching, you've got to be on social media. You've got to be out there plugging your name and tagging things. And I was like, it might help some, but I also spend 2 hours a week on this podcast. So that should that's a positive for me, like 100% positive. But I was just noticing like numerous drawbacks, and also, multiple times that I can when I know I'm getting value from something, like spending time with Hayden, and then you automatically have that like reach for your pocket. It's like, I better check, so I just made the decision to get off with it. And it's been very helpful for me. But this athlete earlier today, I kind of checked in. I was like, how are you doing? And just kind of gave this like very vague answer. And they said, physically I'm fantastic. But inside I'm falling apart a little. I feel like no matter what, I can't do anything good enough. I can't, work, life, training is the only thing keeping me together. And I said, well, that's a shitty way to feel. I said, on my end, personally, it looks like you're doing pretty damn well. You're a good person. You're a great friend, and you have goals and are committed. I don't see any effing problem on my end. And then she ended up reading the email, which is kind of like my email, because it was basically about closing your inner circle not just time of year, but I think in general, we always kind of need to do a reset of like what we're giving our time, energy to, and how we should be like, if we're going to use energy, we should be doing it to help people, right? To bring people in, to do things that are nice and not judge people, like, have like, go back to more of like a childlike existence, to where it's not that we're uneducated or naive, or about what's going on in the world, and we choose not to be informed, or, it's like, oh, you don't care if you're not this. And I'm like, no, I just know that I have a lot to give, and a lot of people that I care about, and a lot of things that I care about. And I want all of my energy and attitude and motivation and drive to go to that. Because anytime I get deterred and deviate from that, I'm absolutely wasting my time. Because we all have gifts, right? We all have gifts of empathy, of energy, motivation, commitment, time, everything. We all have the ability to help and change and positively affect ourselves and other people. But so many times throughout the day and throughout the week, month, year, we waste so much time in being anxious about things we can't control, living in problems that don't exist, freaking out about certain things that may or may not happen, judging people, saying things that we shouldn't do, and you go back to like Hayden is always, he's at this age, he's such a great reminder of like how simple and awesome life should be, and how we should treat things like without like, because we always give so many things like, but how's that going to affect this, and what could happen, and like this, like yesterday before we were I was taking him fishing. He's like all of a sudden like, in love with fishing now, as a 5-year-old is, and he'll probably be in love with like go-kart racing next week. But anyway, we were going to go fishing. So I went inside, he was playing outside, and I said, I'll be back out here in a minute. I come back outside, and I was like, I could tell he had just got done talking. He was like waving, like, he's like totally opposite of me. He's like, like the politician of the neighborhood. So I walked outside, I was like, dude, who are you talking to? He's like, there's a papa and then this kid came by, and I just asked him if he wanted to come over for a play date. And I'm like, first off, like, that's fine. But the thing is we don't have in our neighborhood a kid his age. That's like, that you would be like, yeah, oh, that must be Tim from, down the street with the white house. Totally like oblivious. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, he's at this age where he has like an imagination. Maybe he's just kind of like messing around. And we would go off to fish, and then this grandpa and this kid come over asking to come play with Hayden. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that there was these grandparents that came in the neighborhood to stay with some of the people. But this kid, they had just gotten custody of this 5-year-old, like out of the blue.
Oh, wow.
And Hayden, obviously, like not having any idea what going on, was just like, oh, you look like somebody I'd like to hang out with. Let's come play. So he ends up coming over yesterday afternoon for like 3.5 hours. Because I can't imagine being like in my 60s and being like, hey, you need to parent again in a 5-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. Like out of nowhere. And the stress that would be on the grandparents, but also the kid. And then I can't imagine for the kid, like, like how, like, you're going from like a totally different city with your grandparents, and you have you're obviously no idea what that situation is. And then listening to like some of the questions that the kid would ask, you could tell he had not had like a really good go of it. And all I could think about was like, obviously Hayden didn't know anything about any of that. Like, it wasn't, he was like doing some like empathetic, like, saving intervention with his 5-year-old. It was just kind of like a very simple, like, hey, you want to play? Like this would be fun, and not like going through all the different scenarios. But what if this kid, is around other things? What if he could be bringing this into our house? It was just like, hey, this seems like a good thing. Let's just do it. And it ended up being a really great experience for ourselves and for Hayden. And I kept thinking about how much of our life we spend calculating and trying to predict and trying to control every single moment of our life. And that most of the things that happen in our life that are wonderful are unexpected, right? And same thing goes with training. You know, like we talk about all the time, is like people who plan to go out and crush a swim, they usually get crushed by the swim, right? Because they try to plan it out. And then most oftentimes when you have your breakthrough workout, it happens in that I totally wasn't expecting this today, but I went out and I felt incredible. And just how much control we have, and I don't even know where I'm going with this whole thing, but I feel like I'm you right now. It's like you just kind of weave it all around. It's like, you know, ends up being
I'm kind of like trying to follow.
Paper.
Like, what am I going to say?
You don't need to follow. You just say, yeah, man, I totally agree.
Well, I came in this morning. I do agree. I came in this morning. I'm like, hey, what's on your mind, man? You got it. I know you had a big weekend to think about it. And certainly you're like, no, I tried not to think all weekend. I was just trying to be in the moment. And that is the thing. And I think a lot of times,
which is a weakness for me, is thinking too much.
Yeah. And I do that. I do too, but I try, like, I think I have a desire at the very least to not think a lot, you know, and you know that about me. It's sort of like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but I feel the pressure of not thinking about things a lot of times. So I'm trying to be this sort of Zen-like monk on one hand, but the other guy is trying to be this creative business leader and coach and whatever the case may be. And a lot of times, you know, I think that's sort of why I am so, I guess, headstrong on this idea of going into workouts without agendas a lot of times. And even though there may be a structure to it, but or expectations maybe is a better way to put it. And that usually happens. And I like to think of, all right, here I'm going into this workout. I don't know how my body's going to react. And I try to give my body that grace instead of like, I have to nail this, I have to nail this, I have to nail this. Because a lot of times, like you just said, it just comes out when you least expect it. I just think there's some beauty in really lowering expectations across the board. You know, sort of, I had this thing before I always talked about is aiming low. And even in a race, if you aim low, that really takes a lot of pressure off you. It can, you know, I think it's very hard to gauge and measure the types of pressure that we put on ourselves before a race. And if you go into it with like a realistic, and I don't mean tri-calc realistic, I mean realistic goal, that can really take a lot off you in the beginning. You know, if you have like, okay, let's see, I think I can swim, 105, but just going to say, you know, just go swim a 115 and see how that goes. Because then, you know, you can get that and you don't have to think about being 105, but you might get 108 and then you'd be like, that's pretty sweet. You know, I'll take that, you know. But it's such a big thing to have things on your plate all the time. And if you try to like, just, I don't know, man.
Stop forcing it. Like we force so many things, even when life is basically sending off 10,000 sirens that are like, stop, too much, bad time. Like you're like, no, I'm going to do it. Like, you know, the ultimate, you know, trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Like it becomes just disheartening and unmotivating, and you just beat yourself up. And like, we put way too much weight on expectations and thoughts and desires and what we thought were good ideas even a month ago, right? Much less a year ago. And for a lot of people, 2 years ago, right? That you can, and I'm not saying you have to totally reinvent what you're aiming for, you know, in the near future or the distant future, but I think there's a lot to be said for, you know, finding, like, living your week to week training wise with a very generic peg. I'm going to go into every workout or every day with a peg I think can fit a Swiss Army peg, a peg that can fit a variety of holes. You know, like today, I haven't worked out in 2 weeks, period. Like 2 weeks at all. I was just getting back in the swing of things. I'm trying to get, like, you know, honestly, I'm trying to like figure out what makes sense, you know, for me. But I knew I wanted us to do something today, so I packed run shoes and my swim gear. Didn't build out my training peaks for the week. Because I'm like, you know what? I'll do something today. It's probably swim, but if not, at least I got my run shoes. So I'll figure I'll do something out. The goal is just to do whatever peg fits. And that is such a great way. And every time I've done this, I've created momentum with just finding consistency because I have options, right? I can swim, I can bike, I can run. It's I think when people become paralyzed with, I have a 30-minute run today, I have to do that 30-minute run. And then you force everything, you're stressed, you're hurrying up with work, you're hurrying up with your kids, you're hurrying up with life. Because I got to get this 30-minute run. It's 9 p.m. When early, you probably could have gone on the bike and bike for 45 minutes and your day be done, right? And so it's about like working things into your life, not life into your training, which you talk about all the time. And so many times people try to perfectly structure and build and execute. I'm like, that is just not reality. But somehow people think training is that way, right? And there's just so many things. Like, listen, the best athletes don't nail their entire week every week the way it was laid out a week before. They're flexible. They figure it out. They get creative on how to do things. Oh, your kid's out of school today. What do? Grab the stroller and make it happen. Like, that's just how they operate. Like they don't, I can't ride for 4 hours continuously outdoors today. So, I'm going to get up early this morning for the film because I'm going to ride for an hour and a half hard. And later today, I'm going to ride for 2 hours really easy. Is it ideal? No, but it's the best that I have. And that mentality of just getting the work done versus feeling like it has to be done specifically and perfectly and here and there is also the reason why those athletes come to race day so refreshed and so like mentally and emotionally engaged, is because nothing is given like the stringent, strict adherence that is so many athletes approach to training. Like, it has to be perfectly done. And I'm disappointed that I'm like, well, then it's time to, probably reevaluate your focus and why this is so important and why it's okay to not listen. If you're listening to this podcast, you're not perfect. You're not. You're flawed. You're going to fail probably many times a day. And realizing that, understanding that isn't a bad thing. It actually is kind of effing relief, right? To know that you're not, like, that you aren't in charge, right? Like, that was one of the biggest things that I learned. One of the greatest things I like wrap my brain around at the ranch, which is where I went to treatment, which, by the way, like, I don't know if they have this because I'm on social media, but they were devastated by the floods in Nashville, and they basically wiped out the whole treatment center. And they're trying to like replace all of the people there. I don't know if I need to look that up online today. Anyway, and one of the things that my primary therapist told me was, he said, I said, one of the best things you can do is give your life and your thought process, decision making, to someone else, because you've been the CEO of your life for at that point it was like, 32 years, and look where it got you, right? It got you here. Mm-hmm. So if you want to give it to God, if you want to give it to a higher power, if you want to give it to the rock down the street, give it to someone else, because alleviating that pressure of making your life perfect and being in charge will actually, relieving that stress will allow you to be happier and be more fulfilled, and to show yourself grace, to know that you're not in charge and not forcing things. So I did that. And it was one of the greatest things I ever did, because I realized that I'm not perfect. I'm totally flawed. I'm going to mess up all the time. And you know what? That's okay, right? And then I shouldn't expect to be perfect. Just like in training, you shouldn't expect it to go perfect. Can you be disappointed? Sure. But should you be totally disheartened and destroyed and down for a week because you missed a workout? No, that's not how it's supposed to work. And that is like one of the telltale signs that training is not actually providing a positive aspect to your life. It's actually providing a negative feedback to your whole entire existence.
Mm. Wow, man. I feel actually blessed a lot of times that what we're doing gives me the flexibility it gives me a lot bigger window to decide about my training. For example, there's a lot of people that I coach who have to work out in the morning, and they'll get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and they have to, sort of decide who they are really early. If that happened to me, I think I would burn out, because it's just very difficult to kind of get up and go at it for me. So the idea, I think, of if you have to get up at 4:30, and a lot of times people have to get both workouts in before the day, or before they start work or whatever. And I just think it makes a lot more sense if you have, a tough workout schedule or some kind of hard work swim, for example. Just go to the pool and just see how it feels first, let it unfold, because to automatically wake up, jump in the pool, 30 minutes later and have to knock out a big set of something that's really difficult is a tough one. But if you might not feel, like some days you might feel that and be like, all right, I'm in, I'm good, I feel good, I'm ready to go, whatever it is. But if you don't feel it, if it's a bike, whatever it is, I think you just need to kind of go, okay, I'm going to get on here today and I'm just going to spin for a while and just see how it goes. I mean, let yourself wake up. Let yourself decide where you're at rather than forcing it into that peg that hole like you're talking about. It's just like, you just got to feel it out. I mean, we talked, Cody Beals is a guy, right, who just kind of gets up every day and decides that day how it's going to go. And I really think that's great. And that's why I'm always with my athletes, like, I didn't feel this, I had to do that. I'm like, that's fine. Dude, whatever you got to do. I mean, especially when they're consistent and they're just moving things around a little bit. And I wanted to do this tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I'm totally cool with that. I mean, God, if you could see my training peaks half the time. I'm like, seriously, I'll do like this weekend. I told you I went off, script and did a Montegetti Friday. And then on Saturday, okay, I'm going to do a 40-minute run after the bike. And I put it in there that day, and I ran out road, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And it's red. And then yesterday, that run, I'm going to do an easy spin off the run, red, But I put it in there the day before in thinking that maybe that could happen, but it didn't. And now it's just sitting there, and I'm like, no big deal. I thought maybe, but I had to make that decision. There's just, I've never been one to overcook during training. As you know.
That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure.
I just don't understand.
You're more of a rare guy. You're definitely not a well done guy. You're like a
because
rare.
I know.
Even
like just what I thought on that run yesterday. I'm going to be well done on that race. I'm like, I don't want to be well done all the time, and that just it makes sense to me. It's like you know when we go out there and do these rides or workouts, in your heart, or in your body, you could force yourself through it somehow. But to make it happen right then, when you have 4 or 5 weeks to your race or 3 weeks, and like you said earlier in the podcast, that could mean the next 4 days are gone. Wouldn't you rather be able to get up and do a nice swim tomorrow or whatever than just prove that you can go, 20 extra miles on the bike, or maybe like 6 extra miles on the run that day when it's not even race day yet? That's obviously burning matches, and we talk about it all the time, but I think it's very hard to kind of grasp that concept sometimes when you're in the thick of it.
There's something that you say a lot when I was like, hey, you feeling? Like, I feel healthy. I feel good. And I think that is one of the most underrated approaches to take to training. And there's there's at least, once or twice, Mike and I are both coaches. We work in the same office. We do this podcast, but we work with a lot of people. And when you work with a lot of people, you work with a lot of problems and a lot of issues and a lot of life. And there is at least one time a week where one of us kind of wheels around in our, masterpiece theater chair, and we, talk about, what a certain athlete's going through, and we just kind of sit there and we're like, God bless, dude, life is so hard, right? And especially in the last few weeks, I've had one athlete a few weeks ago who got diagnosed with cancer, another friend that was diagnosed with cancer a week and a half ago, and then the other life things, and you hear, and one of the things that I read every time I read one of these athletes' training peaks is I feel good, I felt healthy today, and just how much we take for granted basically everything.
Yeah.
From the time we, and this isn't some negative Debbie Downer podcast. Hopefully it just is a swift kick in the pants, for myself included, to love the life and to appreciate things and to not take so many things we take for granted, and to take it and allow ourselves to take advantage of our own time to appreciate that we can even go for a run. And instead of being that's the best zones that I hear from athletes, and it's I'm so grateful that I can get up and do this today, that I can get out and I can go for a 2-hour run and feel like you did nothing. Do you understand what that means? About yourself, not as an athlete, but as a human, right? As a person, as your overall health, that you can do that. Like, how effing cool is that? And how good is that for your body and your mentality? And then, you expected to hit 950s, but you didn't. You hit 955s, and you're just, I'm like, get a grip, right? Like just the amount of time and the amount of energy we take to beat ourselves up and to be so critical of the amazing things that we can accomplish in and out of training when life is hard. And it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for people to listen. It's hard for a lot of people, I'm sure, listen to this podcast, that, like the opportunities that we have every day to train shouldn't be ones where we grade ourselves on a scale of pass and fail. It should just be that, did we do the best we could? Then we got it done, and that we feel, and like that we feel able to get up and do these things, not just from what it does for you physically and from a performance standpoint, but how it lifts you up mentally and emotionally to be able to do and get out of your head and go for a swim, or, we all solve the world's problems, when we go swim. Yeah, we're not distracted. It's like, oh, I'm thinking about this and about that. You go out for a run, you feel awesome. You go out for a bike with friends and you feel like $1 million when you get done. Mm-hmm. It's not just the physical part of it. It's what it does for your mental and emotional health. And that was something I tried to drive home in that email this morning. It was like, a happy and positive athlete is a fast athlete. The athletes that are down and negative and self-criticizing, those are not the fastest athletes. So whatever you have to do, like you said, when you're talking about the athletes, do what you need to do, right? Take care of yourself. Number one, you, the person, the human, you are the person you should take care of, number one, first, because that person can be the best triathlete. Not the best triathletes make the best people. It's the best people want to take care of themselves or become the best athletes. It's not different. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. You can do these workouts. As I think we have this tendency to sort of just want to apply every workout to our race goal or something. And you get trapped in there. And then, I'm like, after riding Saturday, I kind of was, driving back, that post-bike feeling when you're a little bit kind of airy-headed, or you're kind of not as quick to the brake pedal kind of thing, and I was feeling that. I'm like, why do I feel like that? I mean, because I didn't feel, quote unquote, like I put in a race effort, even though I kind of did, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. And plus the fatigue, and you're like, there's no reason why I wasn't faster today and why I feel like this. And of course, weeks leading up, and the fatigue, and we never pay attention to that. And it's just something that kind of snowballs onto us. And then we're like disappointed in that run yesterday. I'm like, if I run like this, man, this is going to be embarrassing, in the race. But you have to be able to wipe that out. And going back to that double loop I rode in Wisconsin, we rode that in but that was a hell of an accomplishment. You're talking about 5,500 feet or whatever, and tough course, tough roads, all that kind of stuff. And I felt good after that one, 5 hours, and yesterday I rode maybe 4. I'm like, wait, that was 2 weeks ago. I felt better after that than I did after this. That makes no sense. Well, it does make sense, because you know what? I didn't eat really well before that ride yesterday. I ran late at night on Friday, and, tied those, because we think about that one too. It's like, a lot of times we'll put in there, preferably do this early in the morning, because it's setting up something for the next day. It gives you actually a full day between it. Whereas I only had about 12 to 14 hours between workouts. And those kind of things really do kind of add up, and you got to pay attention to them. And then, I running yesterday, I don't even know what the hell happened there. I think it was because I ate, after my ride, I was just, in just slam it down mode.
Munchy mode.
I had a big half of a ribeye, but I threw in a couple hot dogs. I know. I've had this weird little hot dog thing going lately.
Mustard?
Yeah. A little sauerkraut and some cheese.
You don't put mustard in your hot dog?
Never have. I've always been a ketchup guy. But anyway, I think the combination of the ribeye and the hot dogs really, because my stomach was absolutely with
worst meat ever with the best meat ever.
Right on top of all that, the fueling.
That you took in while you were riding.
Yeah. And then all night my stomach was just jacked. And Sunday it was too. And, you know, I ran on a terrible stomach, bad legs, not feeling whatever. And I expect that to be a good run. I don't know. There's just, you got to have grace with yourself and just let that go. And so all I really focused on last night was really fueling up, hydrating pig. And I've kind of recovered. I feel pretty decent today. So I'm still not sure what I'm going to do. I might take Starkey's advice and sleep it off.
Don't be a hot dog, be a ribeye. Tough for today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We love you guys. If you raced this past weekend, hope you had a good time. You did well and you soaked it in. Enjoy yourself when you're racing out there and have some fun. Check out our website as well. We are at c26triathlon.com, and as our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community, and also making reservations or inquiries about our in-person swim analysis or hub visits. And you can combo that with the stay at our townhome. If you have any questions about that or just camps in general, you can always reach out to Summer. She's at c26operations@gmail.com. We also still have our club membership going on. We had a lot of people hop in last week.
Yes,
we did. A year-long program, and we work around your races and give you a plan and access to a lot of awesome things. That's under the coaching tab. Pop down 3 and click on that. And if you're looking for coaching for anything, no matter what it is, running, cycling, swimming, triathlon, whatever it is, you can peruse our stable of coaches and see which one fits best for you and reach out to them. And then if you have any questions for Mike specifically, he can always be found at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com. And if you want to check out kind of the vibe of our overall team and community, you can always check out Facebook or Instagram, c26_triathlon.
All right. I think that does it.
See you later.
All right. Buddy.